Hello guys, today we're going to review the movie The Kingdom starring Vic Sotto. For better or worse, one of the staples of the Metro Manila Film Festival or MMF every Christmas season is a movie from Vic Sotto. Vic Sotto's Enteng franchise has easily been the most profitable during the season. But we all know that profitability doesn't really mean quality. Vic Sotto's films have always gone for the lowest common denominator. Bereft of any social insight and notorious for gratuitous product placements, Sotto's movies have been easy targets for academics and critics. That is why Vic Sotto's film The Kingdom caught the eye of many, as it is a major departure from the slapstick-reliant ways of his team. Sotto didn't go for laughs this time but went for a serious speculative history. The Kingdom is about the succession challenges of the royal family of Kalayaan, an alternate history Philippines, one that never got colonized. Vic Sotto plays Lakan Makisig, the king of Kalayaan who is burdened by traditions and demands of the crown. His children consist of Magat Bagwis, played by Sid Lucero, who is supposed to be the problem child of the family with his temper and lifestyle. Dayang Matimyas is played by Christine Reyes, a once estranged daughter of the king who is now trying to win his favor again. The youngest, Dayang Luwalhati, is played by Sue Ramirez and is betrothed to the Prince of Thailand. The challenges of the kingdom ramp up when Dayang Luwalhati is kidnapped, supposedly by forces out to secede from the kingdom of Kalayaan. Good thing for Luwalhati that she is saved by Sulo, played by Piolo Pascual, a member of their kingdom's lower class. The movie then, at that point, becomes a typical action film reminiscent of those made by Cesar Montano, Bong Revilla, and Philip Salvador, where a man is unwittingly involved in a conspiracy and is forced to protect a woman who is at the center of it. While The Kingdom deserves commendation for its efforts to offer something different in the festival, it becomes messy because of certain narrative and logical flaws. The first comes from the very first scene, meant to reflect current sentiments regarding the West Philippine Sea. We see local fishermen harassed by Sintan forces, obviously meant to represent China. The makers want the audience cheering right from the start, as the fishermen are saved by an obviously superior and more militarily advanced Kalayaan Coast Guard. The scene doesn't really serve any purpose than to rouse nationalistic tendencies, and it creates a major narrative problem. The scene tells the audience that the Kalayaan military are advanced, but when the military fought rebel forces in a later scene, they were only using bladed weapons instead of guns. What made it worse was that in the mentioned scene, the Kalayaan military were from the Royal Guard, who are supposed to be always the best equipped among the armed forces. Another problem of the movie is the sense of scale. This is supposed to be an epic political drama, but it seemed small. You see this in the wedding of the princess. Obviously, the production lacked the budget to have a substantial security force protecting the princess. The number shown in the movie is laughably small. And note that the wedding involved two nations. Having a security force for a princess that would easily be dwarfed by Taylor Swift's entourage is just sad. That is plain ineptitude coming from the security team or the production. I am shocked that the royal convoy carrying the princess did not have any media coverage, which made the news of the ambush really slow. Normally, events like this would have multiple media teams at varying points of the convoy's route, but there was none. A scene showing the wedding guests not having any idea why the princess was late for her wedding exacerbated this narrative and logistical problem. The movie also tried to establish traditions in the kingdom that seemed noble but are again logical flaws. The writers tried to create a code called Tugmaan, which is essentially an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth kind of code. The problem is that the code was not properly explained, and it seemed that the movie just made up the rules as it went along. One major flaw is that one can challenge another person to one-on-one combat to settle perceived injustices. The problem is that the king himself is also bound to honor this. The problem is that what will stop anyone who felt slighted from challenging the king? A guy who got caught jaywalking can theoretically challenge the king to a fight to the death. The king would be fighting every day of his life. There should be clear limits to the code. One of the come-ons of this movie is that this is an imagining of a Philippines that was never colonized. Now, one implication of that is the language used in that imagined country. The way the characters talked sounded stilted and very artificial. It was straight out of a National Language Month production of college students. What's worse is that the movie showed that the royal protocol documents were in English. What? Now, this would not be a Vic Sotto movie without a moment for the sponsors. I raise my hands up for the Manny Pangilinan cameo as well as the billboard for the current network that employs Vic Sotto. What also bothered me is the bad CGI they used to create the Royal Palace as well as the modern buildings they added to the city. The effect is something straight out of a PlayStation game. The production design looked like a Frankenstein's monster of architecture and style. There was no cohesion. It seemed the production design team just randomly chose things that looked nice in a museum. One could argue that the archipelagic nature of the country could be an explanation, but what I saw on screen is clearly something that came out of a colonized mind. As for the actors, Vic Sotto leads the cast and his performance is welcome compared to his past exploits. Sotto is a decent actor but his talents have never been fully exhibited except for the occasional Lenten specials he would do every year. As king, Sotto exuded a quiet dignity that fit his stature. Piolo Pascual also had his shining moments, but I feel he looked too handsome and clean for someone so oppressed. Christine Reyes now seems to have the monopoly when it comes to political daughter roles, and I couldn't help recalling her performance in Daryl Yap's Made in Malacanang. Sue Ramirez plays her role well and actually looks like a princess. Sid Lucero as the problematic son had a grimy spoiled brat aura reminiscent of the current dispensation. Director Michael Tuviera had a very ambitious project in his hand and he deserves some praise for this offering. It is just that the project had an air of it being rushed and it showed on screen. Perhaps an extra year of production could have done this movie wonders. I know that there is a much better and bigger movie inside of the kingdom, one that has a more fleshed out world. Unfortunately, it is not what we got. So that's the review for The Kingdom, starring Vic Sotto. Now if you like this kind of content, consider subscribing to this channel, commenting, and sharing this video. This has been Kulas for Tambe Reviews. Thank you for watching. Keep on playing.